time, we got an introduction to the book of Numbers. Some of that introduction will continue today as I'm trying to not make this as, these are huge books, Numbers and Deuteronomy. And I'm trying to condense it to where we're not kind of going back over some of the same information that's repeated and things like that. But we are beyond our study of the law now, and we are going into understanding the journey of Israel from Sinai, because remember, they've been at Sinai for a year now, and to their journey into the Promised Land and everything that happened along the way and after, spoilers. Last week we understood that we are in the second year. We are in 1444 BC. And we covered the events that happened a few days before they had the second Passover, and the month after, in which Moses was commanded by the Lord to perform a census or a count of the entire nation. Of course, we understand that this had a militaristic reason because all the men 20 years or older were counted, and it ended up being a count of around, it was a little over 600,000 able-bodied men. And it was also a count of the Levites as well. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a lot. So, last week I mentioned that I was going to have a timeline, and I didn't really have a timeline last week. I think I'm going to put that in this one, because this one has the timeline in it. And this week I'm going to deliver on that. So, we are going to go over a timeline that kind of helps us fill in stuff for where we are. Taking us back to where we left off in the second month and in the second year. So, year number 2, starting in the first month of the first day. Miss Bonato, would you read Numbers 9, 15, and 16?
On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, a tent of the testimony, and it appeared like fire above the tabernacle from evening until morning. It remained that way continuously. The cloud would cover it, appearing like fire at night.
So on the first month of the first day of the second year, the tabernacle was erected. Okay? The same day that Moses and the Israelites put the tabernacle together, God came to show his presence with them from previously where he was on Mount Sinai as cloud covering and talking, back and forth with Moses in his 40 days with him, to where now he was over the tabernacle as a cloud in the day and a fire cloud at night. According to Leviticus 8:33, this was the day that the ordination services and the ordination sacrifices started. And this is when Moses anointed Aaron and his sons, and this continued for 7 days. Okay, then we get to the 8th day. On the first month of the 8th day, so 8 days later, that's when the ordination of the priest were complete and another set of sacrifices and that's when Leviticus chapter 9 is talking about that stuff. This is also when Nadar and Abihu, the 2 sons of Aaron, were killed for using profane fire in the tabernacle. I found a couple of commentaries that helped us understand that when we talked about that sinful action that they did because they were using profane fire and all that stuff, and that they may have been, intoxicated, because right after that is when you get the laws of intoxication and stuff like that for the priest. But this was within hours of the ordination service being complete, which is, when you look at it like that, that makes it even more kind of slap in the face to God. It is literally right after all the ordination services is completed that's when they did this.
Yeah, profane, it means without respect.
Yeah, so, yeah. So again, when people look at stories like that and say, oh man, how could God do that? It's like, he literally just got ordaining these people. And the first thing they did was got hammered possibly and went and done something stupid. I'll use Hannon's term of phrase. They've done something stupid. So then, the first month of the 14th day, the second Passover happens. Hannon, will you read Numbers 9, 6, and 7?
But there were some men who were unclean because of the dead person, so that they could not observe Passover on that day. So they came before Moses and Aaron on that day. Those men said to him, though we are unclean because of the dead person, why are we restrained from presenting the offering of the Lord at its appointed time among the sons of Israel?
So it was time for the second ever Passover. Understanding that even though this was the second Passover, this was the first Passover actually commemorating the actual event of them exiting from Egypt and when the Lord passed over them that night because they put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. However, there are a few individuals who are unclean and can't participate in the second ever Passover. Again, remembering that when Hannon and I covered the laws, Passover was by law to be celebrated by everyone. And these men are protesting, saying, well, why should we be excluded? So we have to question, why were these men unclean? What does it say?
Because of a dead body.
Because of a dead body. Well, it says in verse 6, because of corpses. What corpse? Well, this is where I want us to, we're going to take a detour and just follow me on this, okay? Because it sounds completely out of left field. Go back to Leviticus. Sam, if you'll read Leviticus 24, verses 10 through 14.
10 through 14?
Yep.
Now the son of an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father went out among the Israelites, and a fight broke out in the camp between him and an Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name with a curse, so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Deborah the Danite. They put him in custody until the will of the Lord should be made clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, take the blasphemer outside the camp. All those who heard him are to lay their hands on his head, and the entire assembly is to stone him. Say to the Israelites, anyone who curses their God will be held responsible. Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord is to be put to death. The entire assembly must stone them, whether foreigner or native born. When they blaspheme the name, they are to be put to death.
So there was a son of an Israelite and an Egyptian who got into a fight, and he decided to curse God's name. The theological implication is that this just wasn't swearing God's name or a simple misuse of his name like we think, blaspheming the Lord's name is, or profaning, or taking the Lord's name in vain. We've hammered all that. Go back and watch those videos. They're on YouTube. Subscribe. This man had done something that was, according to God, instructions deserving death. Again, that sounds harsh. But again, the nation of Israel, including the foreigners that were in it, were to obey their laws. Now, why do I mention this weird, random story? Well, I found one commentary, and again, I'm not telling us like we have to believe like this, but I always like to find the nooks and crannies, okay? So that way, our Bible study is interesting. Found one commentary that links this story in Leviticus 8 through 10, okay, all those stories, and it links it with the story of Aaron's sons being killed. The connection is not clear, and then the commentary talked about how it was then placed just in this particular section because emphasizing other laws, just like how you have random stories sometimes. When we went through Leviticus, you had this one random story, and like then a bunch of like list of laws, and because it's linking it all together. Well, with that being said, this blasphemer may have been put to death on the same day, meaning the 8th day of the first month, because he was somehow linked with the blasphemy that the 2 sons of Aaron were doing. Like maybe he encouraged it, or he was somehow a part of it, or maybe he saw Aaron's sons being killed and then he started cursing God's name. Again, just random weird story.
Yeah.
But in both stories of Aaron's sons and this one random person, it says their bodies had to be disposed of. Leviticus 10:5 saying they were carried outside the camp. So the men who had to carry the bodies outside the camp, okay, there were, again, customary, it was either 7 or 14 days of being unclean. Well, they carried the bodies out on the 8th day of the first month. Passover was on the 14th. Only 6 days had lapsed. So there wasn't enough time for ritual purification. So they were unclean. So they were not allowed to participate. We're going to get back to that in a second. Then, on the first day of the second month is when the census was performed that we talked about last week. Now, just keep that in your mind. Now we get back to the story of these men. Emma, will you read Numbers 9, 11 through 12?
The 14th day of the second month at even they shall keep it and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it.
So these men get a redo Passover. A full month after, so the 14th day of the second month, these men get to have a Passover. Isn't that nice? Like imagine like if you miss Christmas, you just get to like redo it the next month. Like, wouldn't that be cool? We get to redo holidays. Like, oh man, my Christmas sucked. We're gonna redo it in January. January 25th, y'all. Not too late. We're almost there. This, of course, is the first time that a special allowance happened, but it wasn't the last. In 2 Chronicles chapter 30, the Assyrians had conquered Israel, the northern kingdom. This is after the kingdoms had split. So King Hezekiah of Judah, the southern kingdom, invites somebody. No. What was that? The turtle. That was the turtle. Okay, turtle, calm down back there. So King Hezekiah of Judah, the southern kingdom, invites anyone, both northern and southern, to come celebrate Passover. However, it wouldn't be enough time to prepare, so they held it in the 14th day of the second month that year. So you had certain special allowances. So I just thought that was neat. Any questions about that so far? Okay, and then finally, we get to the really significant day of this timeline. Ms. Fonetto, if you'll read Numbers 9, 17 through 23, and Hannon, if you'll read 10, 11 through 13.
Whenever the cloud was lifted up above the tent, the Israelites would set out. At the place where the cloud stopped, there the Israelites camped. At the Lord's command, the Israelites set out, and at the Lord's command, they camped. As long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, they camped. Okay. How much further?
To 23.
20, okay. Even when the cloud stayed over the tabernacle many days, the Israelites carried out the Lord's requirement and did not set out. Sometimes the cloud remained over the tabernacle for only a few days. They would camp at the Lord's command and set out at the Lord's command. Sometimes the cloud remained only from evening until morning. When the cloud lifted in the morning, they set out. Or if it remained a day and a night, they moved out when the cloud lifted. Whether it was 2 days, a month, or longer, the Israelites camped and did not set out as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. But when it was lifted, they set out.
You like the CSB, don't you? So,
Think they got it.
and then Hannon, if you'll read 10, 11 through 13.
Now in the second year, in the second month, on the 20th of the month, the cloud was lifted from over the tabernacle of the testimony, and the sons of Israel set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai. Then the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. So they moved out for the first time, according to the commandment of the Lord through Moses.
So on the 20th day of the second month of the second year, it was around Mayish, the Lord's cloud rose up from the tabernacle, indicating that it was time for the Hebrews to pack up the camp at Mount Sinai and start heading out for the first time since they had come to the mountain over a year ago from their departure from Egypt. The Lord giving them instructions in the form of a cloud during the day and cloud of fire at night. Now, I should mention that at this point, this is where we have a little bit of overlap with Deuteronomy. So this, again, our study is going to be more of a tackle of Numbers and Deuteronomy together, using them to kind of fill in one another. Sam, will you read Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 6 and 8?
6 through 8?
6 through 8, sorry.
The Lord our God said to us at Horeb, "You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Break camp and advance into the hill country of the Amorites. Go to all the neighboring peoples in the Arabah, in the mountains, in the western foothills, in the Negev, and along the coast, to the land of the Canaanites and to Lebanon, as far as the great river, the Euphrates." You said the 8, right?
Yeah.
See, I have given you this land. Go in and take possession of this land, of the land the Lord swore he would give to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to their descendants after them.
So this is where we actually get, verbal confirmation from God, where he tells Moses, hey, it's time for y'all to get going. Like, y'all been here long enough, we head now. So finally they start their march toward the promised land, with the Lord guiding them personally. And remember, they are not just, okay, everybody just grab your stick and walk. They are going out in almost like marching battalion type formations, because I listed it off last week, where each tribe was in a specific order as they went. Now, spoilers. Obviously, we know that the Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years. That is a no-brainer for everybody in this room and probably half the people who are watching. But the point of this is to find out what happened next. So, where are they headed? And that's why I have our map here. Deuteronomy tells us that they are going to the mountains of the Amorites, plains, mountains, and lowlands, and sea coast, and the land of the Canaanites and Lebanon, as far as the river Euphrates. What this is describing is the promised land in its entirety. He goes, I'm not sending y'all to the promised land. I'm sending y'all to take and conquer this land. Who read last? Sam? Emma, will you read Numbers 10, 12?
And the children of Israel took their journeys out of the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran.
So they come to the wilderness of Paran. Now remember, way back when they first entered from after the Red Sea to Mount Sinai, they were in the wilderness of Sin. Okay, that's what it was called, and this is where Sinai is down here. This is my beautiful rendition. This is the Gulf of Suez, I think that's called. This is the Gulf of Aqaba. Moab's up here, Promised Land, Canaan up here, Mediterranean Sea, Lower Egypt, Goshen, where they pretty much started. They come down here to Sinai, and now they are going into the wilderness of Paran, which is pretty much this entire area up here. Then you have the wilderness of Zin up here. Okay, so you have several wilderness break-offs here in my
Sin and praying.
very poorly drawn map. So, they are exiting the wilderness of Sin and going to the wilderness of Paran. Paran was located in the area north of where they had been at Sinai, going toward the Promised Land. Paran is one of the largest and most barren of the wilderness traversed by the Israelites during this time. It covered much of the northern Sinai Peninsula and some of the southern of Arabia. Now, this moves us into a series of 3 events, and we're going to cover these tonight as best we can. So let's turn to Numbers chapter 11. And I'm going to start us off reading verses 1 through 3 in chapter 11 of Numbers. Now the people began complaining openly before the Lord about hardships. When the Lord heard, his anger burned, and fire from the Lord blazed among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So the place was called Taberah, because the Lord's fire had blazed among them. We are not told what the complaint is. However, the wording, the original Hebrew wording, describes an over-exaggerative, open-air complaint. So literally walking outside their tents and saying, God, why? Why, God, are you doing this to me? Anybody been there? No? Just me?
No, been there, yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They are literally yelling at God. Then the Lord caused a punishment to the Hebrews by burning the surrounding edges of the camp. They called the place Terabah, which means blaze, due to the fire. Terabah, by the way, is a place, and it's just a little northeast of Sinai. Next, Miss Vonetta, will you read in chapter 11, verses 4 through 6?
Oh, thank you, because that's all that second word. The riffraff among them had a strong craving for other food. The Israelites wept again and said, who will feed us meat? We remember the free fish we ate in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There is nothing to look at but this manna.
Alright, so we've covered this story before when we talked about manna and quail. However, the Hebrews move from Terabah and they start complaining again. Again, this is a very familiar story because we talked about this. But what happens? A group of Hebrews are complaining about the manna. They wanted meat. They wanted it now. So what do y'all think the Lord did? Well, Hannon, will you read 11:10 through 13?
Now Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, each man at the doorway of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly, and Moses was displeased. So Moses said to the Lord, why have you been so hard on your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight, that you have laid the burden of all this people on me? Was it I who conceived all this people? Was it I who brought them forth, that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a nurse carries a nursing infant to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all this people? For they weep before me, saying, give us meat that we may eat. Oh, that rhymes. I alone am not able... Wait, how far was I supposed to go?
To 13.
Oh, okay, that was 13.
Okay. So what happens? Well, they're complaining to Moses outside the door of the tabernacle. That'd be like going to church and knocking on the door of the pastor's office saying, why are you doing this to us? So what does Moses do? God, why are you doing this to me? You make me deal with these infants. Help me, Lord. Where am I supposed to find meat? See, this is great.
I hate you.
It's awful. Sammy, will you read 31 through 34?
Almost there. 31 through 34.
Yeah.
Now a wind went out from the Lord and drove quail in from the sea. It scattered them up to 2 cubits deep all around the camp, as far as a day's walk in any direction. All that day and night, and all the next day the people went out and gathered quail. No one gathered less than 10 homers. Then they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, and before it could be consumed, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. Therefore the place was named Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who had craved other food.
So what does the Lord do? The Lord gives them exactly what they ask for. And they eat quail, and they eat quail, and they eat quail, and they eat quail, until they literally die from it.
Wow.
And they call the place Kibroth Hattaavah, which means graves of craving. That takes slothfulness to a whole new, and gluttony to a whole new level. All right, and that is just slightly more north of Carolina. So they're traveling, they're going. Let's get to the third story in this section. Chapter 12. Who read last? Emma, will you read verses 1 and 2?
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman who he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it.
Now, this section is still part of the other complaints, but this time it's a twist. It's Miriam and Aaron. We've never heard Aaron really complain. Not written. But now Aaron is complaining toward Moses about his wife, his leadership, and his connection to God.
That's not smart.
Jealousy.
Even going as far as saying, does the Lord only speak through Moses? And this is where, okay, Holy Spirit time. I was watching a video. I love these two guys. I think it's the Bible Project. It might be them. I can't remember exactly which group it is.
Is it John and
Maybe. It's the guy who do the two podcasts and they ask.
one has glasses?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was watching this and this was very interesting. Is it talks about how everybody looks at Aaron. It's like, oh man, Aaron was such a great guy for stepping in for Moses and being his mouthpiece. And I did not know this when we went back to it. I went back and read the plagues. When Aaron was the one who was speaking and doing things, the plagues, the first couple of plagues also hurt Israel. But once Moses stepped up and started doing what God had told him to do, those are the plagues that then it says only affected Egypt. So, just keep that in your back pocket. So what happens? Remember back in Exodus 20:18, the Lord comes to rest on Mount Sinai, and the people are scared, so scared that they beg Moses to speak for them and to be their mediator between them and God. Yeah. So, what happens? Follow me along in verse 4. Suddenly the Lord said to Moses, I love the CSB for this, and said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, you three come out to the tent of meeting. So the three of them went out, and then the Lord descended in the pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance of the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. Then, when the two of them came forward, he said, "Listen to what I say. If there is a prophet among you from the Lord, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all his household. I speak with him directly, openly, and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord." Shots fired.
That is like so special.
"So, why are you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" And the Lord's anger burned against them, and he left. And the clouds moved away from the tent, and Miriam's skin suddenly became diseased, resembling snow. Then Aaron turned toward her and saw that she was diseased, and said to Moses, "My Lord, please don't hold against us this sin we have so foolishly committed." God literally calls Aaron, Moses, and Miriam out of the tabernacle, telling Aaron and Miriam, if I want to talk with other people among the tribe of Israel, I'll send them a dream. But Moses is my chosen leader, and I'll speak to him directly. So essentially God is telling them, I'll speak to whoever I want to speak to, and the two of you need to shut up. Like, gosh. Like, I love the CSB. Now, of course, punishment is also dealt out. There is a lot I could say about all of this, but tying it all up, we started tonight with a time with the time frame. This all happened within a month. Then going from Terebinth, Kiboth, and now this is called Hazeroth. This all happened within a month. So it is around June now that all of these events have happened. So this is ending around late June. What I want to say about these is what we have is a cycle of 3 complaints and 3 judgments. In the first event, the Hebrews are complaining outwardly, again, literally yelling at the sky. And we do this today, don't we? I mean, we say, God, why? Like, why are you doing this, God? Like, well, why me? The Hebrews did this. It's just as we complain today about the Lord's provision and his plan. It is a mistrust of God. It's telling God, God, I know you got a plan for me, but it's not good enough. I don't like it. So I'm going to do what I want to do and then complain to you when my life sucks. And of course, this usually comes from either a lack of faith or unbelief in God and not truly trusting him. Again, preach to me. Okay? I have these events all the time. Good thing I'm married to a very, very, very faithful wife who is like, everything's going to be okay. Yes, dear, you are correct. In the second event, God had given them nourishment. Okay, so in the first complaint, they're complaining about his provision and his plan. So in the second complaint, he is taking care of their nourishment. Okay? He is taking care of their food. However, they didn't like what God had done, and instead they wanted what they wanted. Again, this speaks volumes of our prayer life. Sometimes we are very dismissive about when God answers a prayer. The manna was an answered prayer for the hunger they had in the wilderness on their way to Mount Sinai and even beyond. But this wasn't good enough. How many times, and be honest with yourself, how many times has God answered a prayer and you were disappointed by the way he answered it? This also speaks volumes about our old life before Christ. It specifically says that in Numbers 11:5, remember what we had back in Egypt? We had all these wonderful things. Yeah, we were enslaved and we were getting killed off, but we had leeks and onions and fish. Oh, their complaints in the first event they showed a lack of faith. It's led them to rebellion in their minds, remembering their old life. Again, we do the same thing. We start questioning God. We start questioning His will. We start questioning everything about Him. We start thinking, well, you know, before I became a Christian, my life was pretty awesome. You know, I could do this and I could do that. And now I got these do's and don'ts. It's like, man, my life was awesome before I met Jesus. And there are people who think that. Now, me, I am not going to say that, because without Jesus, I know I am absolutely nothing. And that is not me trying to pat myself on the back. It is me humbly saying I am a stupid creation and I need Jesus. Then, in the final event, poor Moses had to deal with rebellion from his own siblings, which again speaks volumes of what Jesus said later about how his message would bring father against son and daughter against mother, and there would be 1 versus 2 in a household. 2 Timothy chapter 3 warns of people in the last days becoming rebellious, unthankful, and unholy. Their unfaithfulness and lack of faith lead to them wanting their old life, which leads them to not even wanting the leader that they asked for. Now, this is not a political thing, so don't take it that way. But they asked for Moses. God said, I'll have communion with you. Y'all can come up here. But no, they said, no, we're too scared of you, God. Like, we need somebody to intercede for us. Which again, Moses was that picture of what Christ does for us now, because Christ is our mediator. But they asked for this, and now they're rebelling against it. And in both events, 1 and 2, the people who rebelled against God died. However, in the third event, Miriam was the one who suffered God's judgment, and Moses could have been rightfully angry. But this is, verse 11, it says, when Moses said that Aaron looked at Moses and said, "My Lord, please don't hold this sin against us, because we've committed, so we have foolishly committed." And then Moses, it says in verse 13, it says he cried out to God, "Please heal her." 4 simple words: God, please heal her. And of course, God does. Nothing happens to Miriam in this story after that.
She gets set outside the camp for
Yeah.
7 days.
Yeah, for 7 days. She does
be-
have to follow the laws that they put. But these stories show how God will not take a rebellious attitude. There are consequences for the actions that we commit. And this is why God's law is important. However, God's mercy still shines even when we rebel, because at the end of the chapter they find themselves continuing on this journey, and it says that from Hazeroth they went and camped in the wilderness of Paran. So where they end up being is right here in this little border area. They were just south of the wilderness of Zin, and right here at the northern edge of Paran. So they were right outside the promised land. They were getting there. Any questions or comments or theological debates or awesomeness, whatever? All right. Well, I hope you guys found this informative about what happened to the Israelites in this story. I know there is one coming up. I can't remember if it's next week or the week after. It's one of those where we are actually going to take a detour, and it's going to make sense when we get there, of a little bit of why certain events are happening today with Israel. And we're going to get into a big historical topic about that. In the meantime, you guys, if y'all need prayer or have any questions about these Bible studies, please feel free to comment down below, or you can always reach me on Facebook. I am Edward James Grissom, or you can reach us at our email, guardiansofchristministries@gmail.com. And if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to give it a like and subscribe. We're trying to grow our channel this year, so looking forward to doing that. God bless and have a wonderful week. Emma, you can take us out.